Oh, hi guys. Just a bit of a few thoughts going on in my head just lately, and I thought I'd just put them down on film and then get them out there, and no doubt stir up a hornet's nest, but here goes, we'll see how it goes. This is just my two penneth, as we say in Yorkshire, on knife steels. The first thing I will say about knife steel is the range is absolutely immense. But what I will say is the single most important thing about a knife or tool is the hardening and tempering process. You can take one of the cheapest simple carbon tool steels, something like 1084, which is one of the cheapest going, give it a good heat treat, you've got a great knife or tool. You can pick some really expensive metallurgical powder steels. If it's not heated and if it's not heat treated correctly, it'll be a bag of shite. Simple as that. Now, there's no doubt some of the modern steels give particular characteristics. So if you get some of the modern steels and you give it a really good heat treat, it will have certain characteristics that, you know, some people will find really, really useful and that they really, really want. And that's absolutely fine. From my perspective, and from the people I know, both in the bushcraft scene, the tracking scene, hunting scene, fishing scene, the reality is probably 95% of the people I know couldn't give a toss, and probably would never know the difference anyway between, you know, different types of steel. If, like I say, if you've bought a good quality knife from a good maker or a good retailer, and it's, you know, it's got a good heat treat, literally it's going to do everything you want out in the field. You do not have to buy the latest steel, you know, and even if you do, there's always a trade-off. Everything has a trade-off. The harder the steel, the more resistant to wear it is, the harder it will be to sharpen. And what do you want? What do you want to do? What are you willing to do and learn? If you're really good at sharpening, you have the tools, you have the equipment, go ahead and buy some of the latest powder steels. Great. If you haven't got diamond stones to sharpen them or mechanical means to sharpen them, you're going to be in that shed a long time putting an edge back on that knife when it finally goes. However, you get some of the other, you can get some of the tool steels, and they'll give you a great edge. They will give you a full day's work under any normal circumstance, and yet be reasonably easy to sharpen. So you take, you know, pays your money and you takes your choice. Same thing with stainless steels. There's a lot of bad press for stainless steels out there, and most of it's poppycock, because it boils down to the fact that when they first came out and they were first being used and first being mass produced, and I'm going back 40 years now, they were crap because the heat treat was crap. Some of the first steels, some of the first stainless steel knives that came out were 440C, 420s, you know, the 420, 440 grades, and the higher, you know, the HCs and the C grades, and they were crap. And that's why all of a sudden knives suddenly became 4, 5, 6 mil thick. They were being made that thick to withstand the abuse they were being given without breaking. The reality is the problem wasn't the steel, it was the heat treat, and not understanding how to heat treat to get the best out of the steels. You get something like Buck, I believe, I think it's Buck, I might be wrong, but I believe they use a lot of 420, and the knives have been going for generations, you know, well, decades anyway, not about generations, but decades. Their knives have been going for decades. People swear by them. It's a 420 HC, it's one of the cheapest stainless steels you can get, but they give it a good heat treat, and you get a good knife. You know, so this thing about carbon and stainless, you know, what I would say is if you don't want to look after the knife, and you know you really don't care, and you're going to get it wet, or you're near the sea and that kind of stuff, yeah, it does work. Go for the stainless steels. If you're willing to put a bit of effort into it, you like to sharpen them or look after them, and you want something that will give real bite, I still like carbon steel, and it's what I work with. You know, I have a kiln now here, and at my kiln I can do stainless steels. At the minute, I have no intentions of doing that. Because of the results I'm getting with the knives I have, and again, people talk about, you know, rusting on carbon steels. It takes very little to look after them, you know. So, like I say, you pays your money and you takes your choice. But what, you know, if you're going to research a knife, the first thing you want to find out about is, do they do a good heat treat? That's far more important, like I say, than the particular type of steel they use, and even whether it's carbon or stainless. It's far more important to find out the kind of heat treat and what goes into it. You know, so if you're going to buy from a maker, find out what he does, other, you know, ask people if, you know, if you, anybody who's got his blades, you know, there's lots of stuff on YouTube. You can actually have a Google and find out, you know, what sort of processes people, you know, what guys go to. The one thing I do know there's some bits of wrangles about is whether people, you know, you get knife makers, some knife makers send their knives out to get professionally heat treated, others don't. And I suppose again that will completely depend on what the company that they send them to does in their heat treatment. You know, what I've actually found from the testing that I've done and the stuff I've watched on YouTube, things like the actual temperature that they're taken to, the soak times, the quench times, the types of tempering that you're doing, can make a massive difference to the edge holding, the toughness, and the kind of blade that you're going to get and what you want to do with that knife. Whereas you go to mass produce, and I know I approached a company not far from where I live, well actually not far from where I work, and they do professional heat treating. They guaranteed to give me a blade back at whatever Rockwell I wanted. And these were going to be baked in oxygen-free atmosphere. There was no decarb, you know, and everything was, you know, whatever. I mean, the costs were, as long as I could send them a bunch of blades at a time, the cost was reasonable. But then when I asked them about the actual temperature that blade was going to go to, and could I specify that, I couldn't, because their kilns, they wouldn't just going to be going to harden my set of knives in that kiln, they would be doing other things, so I couldn't specify the actual temperature. The soak time, they were maybe they could, maybe they couldn't, you know, but they could get something near there depending on when my things came out of the kiln. The tempering, I asked them about the tempering, and they had a set temper, and they would give that blade. My blade was going to get a 2-hour temper. That was it. Or was it a 1-hour temper? Right, it varied actually. I think that's what it was. Depending on what went in the kiln with it, that would let them, I would get whatever tempering that they could possibly do. So if I only wanted an hour, but it was going to be on for 2, they would take my knife out after my knives out after an hour. However, if it was smaller pieces, a kiln full of smaller pieces that were, I mean, anything, I believe, like from say 01, they recommend a minimum of an hour for up to an inch thick, even if it's only 2mm thick, not an inch. You know, so you've got like a 1/16 of an inch or 2/16 of an inch. The minimum is an hour, so it would have got a minimum of an hour. But if they had an oven full of smaller pieces, they would be coming out after an hour, and I couldn't specify that I wanted a 2-hour soak and 2 1-hour soaks, which is how I do it. So I just wasn't happy with that. I know for a fact I would have got a blade back at a set Rockwell that had been professionally heat treated, but I don't believe that they could give me a product back on a regular basis which is as good as I can turn out. That's why I'm sticking to what I'm doing now. And those are the sort of things you have to find out about when you're actually looking at buying a knife, especially if you're going to buy a handmade knife from you know, the cutlers out there. There's some amazing guys out there, absolutely amazing guys. Find out what they do, find out what processes they follow and who does their heat treat, because at the end of the day that's far more important than just the steel they're using. So anyway, with that strange ramble that started on about steel, which is basically, I've talked about all the other stuff, because the reality is it's all that other stuff that's even more important. You know, what do you want to do with the knife? What are you going to use it for? Can you sharpen the knife? How long would you be in the field? You know, if you're out in the field and you're going to go on a week's trip and, you know, your knife's losing its edge after a couple of days' work, have you got the diamond stones with you to sharpen it up, or can you just give it a bit of a strop or a whoop up on the leather strop and get a razor edge back on it? Lots of things to think about. You know, lots of guys talk they wax lyrical about knives for hours on end, and this knife does this and this knife does that, and you'll see all the tests and the destruction tests and all the rest of it. Whenever you ever come, very interesting, they're great to watch, don't get me wrong, don't stop doing it guys, keep doing it, it's great to watch. But in reality, it's, you know, are you ever going to do anything like that? And I doubt it very much. Like I say, I think 95% of the people I know, you know, 95% of the people I know give me their knives to bloody sharpen because they can't. And they couldn't give a toss what type of steel it was as long as it worked. And I think that's the reality of it. Get a good heat treat and then, you know, don't worry about anything else. Same goes for the shape and everything else. You know, at the end of the day, you can skin a mouse, you know, you skin a mouse and peel your potatoes with a machete. You know, you can build a shelter with a 2-inch neck knife. Just be careful what you listen to, you know, and be careful what, you know, think about the questions you're going to ask before you buy the knife and what you want the knife to do. And with that, I will now shut up because I have no idea how long I've rambled on for. And that's before I've got through my beer. Oh, been a long day at work this morning. And I will sign off. So anyway, keep well, guys. Hope everything's going on okay. Everybody in the UK, I've got to stop looking at the bloody screen and look at the lens. Everybody in the UK, how you doing, guys? Anybody who knows me over here, if you don't know me, get in touch. Maybe some outdoor stuff going on. And subscribe, like, please. And I'll catch you guys later. Awesome. Thanks for watching, guys.